Hey guys and girls, it's Blackjack with 396 Guitars. Come on camera, do your thing. We have the Lefty Fender Stratocaster is the next installment we're doing. We got the neck out, we glued the headstock together. We're going to take that back off, get that cleaned up, put the tuning machines back in, and I'm going to show you what we're doing in preparation to wire it up. And I'm only waiting still for the bridge studs, but we're going to get everything done today, waiting for that, because once that goes in, it's basically string it up and do a setup. So let's get to work. Remember, if you dig what I'm doing, like and subscribe. So there was a crack up here in the headstock. I glued it and let it sit overnight. Let's undo it and check our work. I'm pretty certain that took. No, I think it was a 6mm, was it? Yeah. So all I was doing was flexing it, and that's how I realized that it was actually cracked. It appears as though the crack that I repaired is up here. This really wasn't separating, although I think it's just, it looks like it's just the finish. We're golden. It is rock solid now, and that's tuning stability, and not only that, it's structural. I mean, yeah, it's not flexing at all, so that's good news. I didn't have any doubt, really. It was a pretty simple repair. I'm just going to take a how did I find out it was 25/64 and clean out holes by hand just to make sure there's no goop down in there. Oh yeah, there's some. I'm just chasing out the hole. I did clean up the tuning machines a bit. They're Spurzels, which means back in the day somebody, this guy that owns this instrument had somebody put good tuners in it. Spurzels are not cheap, but they're old. And, I don't know how old, but all the finish is coming off, all the plating, but on some of them you can still read Spurzel on them, and those are good tuners. I highly recommend them. I use them on a lot of the gear that I do for clients. You do have to pay up for them. They're not cheap. They are not cheap. But they're excellent. Are these like new? No, not at all. I can't make them like new. If this particular client wants to upgrade or put new ones in at a later date, yeah, we can certainly do it. Yeah, no. I cleaned everything up as much as I could, but this guitar's got a vintage, well-worn vibe to it any way you look at it. So we're just going to run with these for now. I'm going to pause while I get all of these put in and snugged up. And we'll be back. I'm going to then show you the next victim, which is the control plate. Stand by. So the next victim, as I said, is the control plate or pickguard cover. New 5-way Fender switch, CTS pots. I cleaned up and remounted all the old pickups, the pickups that came out of it. They were working when I took it out, so we shouldn't have a problem, but all this other garbage was just that, garbage. I also re-shielded and put some conductive tape on the back of the pickguard, as you can see, because the other stuff was just too far gone and it wasn't doing anything. This is a redundant ground to make continuity. It also kind of keeps down that 60 cycle hum. Got the pickups in, mount everything, and the first thing that we do, and I'm going to show you, is prep everything for soldering. I'm not going to show you the whole process of soldering, but have your, I still go by my, sometimes I've done these so many times I usually don't need them, but I'm going to scrape clean the back of each pot to accept your ground solder. All we're doing is prepping the pots for wiring. And what I like to do is fill all the holes, all the lugs first, even the ones we're not using, because it doesn't matter really. But scrape off a little bit of the back of the pot. We're going to do that first. Get your solder iron ready. That makes for a better contact surface. I know my head will probably be in the way. You just got to get a decent puddle on there, because this is where all of our grounds are going to go. Various grounds, what have yous. Doesn't need a whole bunch, but a good amount. And you do that on all three of them. Try not to huff the smoke. Just got to get it on there, and you want it to be really bright silver. That means it's on there and it's adhered. Yep, that looks good. And then proceed to the lugs. The first one is the volume pot. We're going to ground to this area right here. This lug gets grounded right to the back of the pot. Thusly. I don't know if the camera's picking up on that, but that looks good. Every once in a while, clean off your tip. And we're going to fill the lugs, and that is to facilitate quick and easy connection and joint. Just heat it up, put a little bit, get every hole covered. It takes a second. You got to do each lug on each pot, even though some of them we're not going to use, a couple of them. And check your work, make sure each one has a little bit on it. Right, that looks really good. Now, same thing with the 5-way switch. Just a little dab will do you. Don't go overboard. It doesn't need a big glob on there, just enough to cover the hole. Sometimes it can run down and get into the rest of the control plate. In this case, the switch. I'm sure my head is in the way, but I hope not too much. Now, I'm not going to show you the entire process of wiring this all up, because off camera it's going to take me about an hour to get it all the way. I like it nice and clean and neat, but you get an idea of what's going on there. All of our control pots. I filled all the lugs. this is the volume pot. You ground that lug to the back of it, and your output jack and all the rest of the stuff goes there. Your pickups, ground, you're going to have common ground going to each. I'll show you that when I'm finished. And we'll pause here while I get that done. Like I said, it usually takes me about an hour because I have OCD and I really want it to look nice and clean and neat. And I don't like huge globs of solder everywhere. So most of the time I will take in common ground and put one, instead of trying to put 3 ground wires to the back of one pot, I will common ground them together, and then one wire goes and gets to the pot. It's cleaner, neater, and it works like a charm. You guys can argue that ad nauseum. Stand by. All right, so off camera, I'm going to tell you elapsed time is about an hour and a half. We got the entire cavity wired up. Pickups, neck, middle, bridge. And I'm going to try to give you a good shot of, that's what it looks like when I get done wiring up a control plate on a Fender Stratocaster with a 5-way switch. Everything needs to look neat. Neatness counts in this kind of thing. What we have left to do, and we're going to do that on camera with you, is the output jack claw ground, which is the ground that comes from there, goes through the body, and the redundant ground that is screwed into the body right here in the front. I soldered them together. So we have 2 grounds and 1 positive, well, 1 hot wire from the output jack. So at this juncture, when you get to this point, now normally this thing would be flipped around, and I'd be doing it this way, and on a righty. That's kind of the way it has to go. It's going to fit right down on there thusly. The neck would normally be going in that direction. On a lefty, the neck is going in this direction in the orientation that we're working with. So this white lead has to go to the center lug on the volume pot. These 2 grounds, one from the output jack and the redundant ground and the claw ground from the back, we're just going to go to the back of a pot. Pretty much basic stuff. I'm going to try to illustrate this on camera, but my head is likely going to be in the way and be a pain in the ass, because it's hard to do this stuff on camera. The first lead we're going to do is the white lead. That's the easiest one. It's got to go over there, which means I need to make sure I have enough. There we go. All right, is my head terribly in the way? I don't know. Just a little bit of solder on the tip. Volume pot, center jack. Touch it, push it through. Tug it, make sure you got a good connection. Our output jack is connected. Now, usually I will take the output jack ground and put it to one of the tone pots. And I'm probably gonna do that. I have enough lead to make it to the volume pot with the body ground and the claw ground. The trick is to get this thing to stand up in a point where I like it. I think that'll do it right there. I'm going to try to do this without my big fat head in the way. Tin the tip of your solder iron. Get it to where you want it to be. Yahtzee. It's not the solder iron tip that actually heats up your joint that you're trying to apply. It's the solder on the tip of your iron. That's what really gets hot. And you get one shot at it. And the bigger the glop is not always necessarily the better the job. I'm going to put that one right there, down to the tone pot. you got to remember that all of these pots are common grounded, and there's actually 2 redundant grounds in this system, so we should be good. That's the ground for the output jack that I just attached to the bottom tone pot. Always tug it, pull it. If it doesn't want to come loose, you should be golden, right? You should be golden. I mean, don't rip on it. You don't have to hook a tow chain to it and pull it with a truck. Just tug on your joint and make sure that it's connected. So at this juncture, we are ready to actually plug in an amplifier and tap test our pickups and our wiring system. And we can also make sure that everything kind of falls down into the cavity, which I've done several times off of camera. Really, this one, I was concerned about that big cutout, but I'm starting to love that big cutout that's in there because everything just went plop right in there. So I am going to tap test it and see where we're at. That should be our neck pickup. I always get mixed up with lefties. Something ain't working. What did I do? What did I do? Am I not plugged in? What's happening here? I had noise at one point. So that is our bridge. Bridge and neck. Nothing else. What is touching down in there? All right, I'll be right back.